My name is Nora Bennett. I'm 30 years old. A few weeks ago, I heard my father say I was too embarrassing to be seen with my brother's new in laws. I was in the hallway, holding a coffee mug, when his voice carried from the living room. Your brother's in laws are elite. You'll humiliate us. Do you understand, Nora? Don't ruin this. He spoke as if I were a problem to manage, not his daughter. My brother had just become engaged to a millionaire heir, the kind of person featured in luxury hotel magazines. And suddenly my life as a data analyst in Austin seemed threatening to their image. They didn't care that I spent nights rebuilding hotel revenue models and fixing booking systems. To them, I was just the awkward girl who asked too many questions at dinner and didn't know which fork to use. While they packed designer outfits for a New Year's Eve engagement party at a luxury resort, I was told to stay home. They didn't want me at the party, near the elite, or for anyone to know I was part of the family. What they didn't know was that those same in-laws had been working with me for months under a different name, relying on my numbers to save their business. And on the night they tried to hide me, they ended up staring at a framed photo, recognizing me, and calling my name in front of everyone. Have you ever been treated like the family embarrassment, only to realize you're the one holding the power? Stay with me. The way this party flipped from humiliation to payback is something worth hearing to the end. I didn't grow up thinking I was embarrassing. I thought I was different. While other kids ran around at family barbecues, I counted hot dogs at the table and wondered why Uncle Mike always left early. I asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. Why invest in a company with so much debt? Why say we're fine if mom works 2 jobs? Adults would laugh, then stop inviting me into conversations. My parents, Thomas and Karen Bennett, often pulled me aside. Nora, can you just be normal? Smile. Talk about school, don't interrogate people. Meanwhile, my older brother Ethan was everything they wanted. He knew when to laugh, compliment a watch, or ask about golf. At his high school graduation dinner, I accidentally bumped into a tray of marinara sauce, splattering it across a guest's white dress. Silence fell. My mother turned pale. My father gripped my arm and hissed, "This is exactly what I mean. You don't belong in these settings." After that, I stopped trying to fit in at their parties. Instead, I focused on numbers. In high school, I taught myself spreadsheets. In college, while others posted from parties, I ran A/B tests on small business websites. I studied business analytics and computer science, learning how to turn messy data into clear insights. Hotels began coming to me with the same problem. Too many empty rooms. In my dorm, I would tweak prices and ad strategies until bookings improved. Back home in Austin, none of that mattered. When I mentioned landing my first client, my mother said politely, "Still doing that online thing?" My father waved it off. "Temporary. She'll get a real job eventually." Ethan, on the other hand, went into law and quickly became the golden child. At family dinners, my mother would whisper, "Could you at least pretend you're not working from your bedroom?" At some point, I decided if they wouldn't see my value, I would build it quietly outside their approval. I registered Bennett Analytics and began refusing invitations to parties where I'd be the punchline. I chose data over dinner tables, dashboards over small talk. While they polished Ethan's image, I learned something they didn't. In the right hands, numbers can determine a company's fate. The question was, what would happen when my work intersected with their obsession over status? The first time Harrington and Vail Resorts came into my life, it was because someone else was desperate. I was in my apartment in Austin, half asleep over a spreadsheet, when an email appeared. Urgent. Mid-size resort chain in trouble. Can you help? A small agency I had freelanced for panicked. They had a client with crashed bookings post-pandemic and huge expectations. That client was Harrington and Vail Resorts. A few hours later, my phone rang. "This is Graham Harrington," he said. "We've heard you can pull numbers out of the fire. No camera, connection's bad. Let's keep this on audio." I liked not being seen. Over the next hour, he explained, their flagship properties were half empty, competitors were gaining market share, and the last agency wasted 7 figures with little to show. "We need someone who understands data, not just presentations. Can you fix this?" I wasn't intimidated. It was just a larger version of puzzles I'd solved before. I asked for access to their booking system, ad accounts, and analytics. Within days, I spotted patterns no one else had noticed. Pricing was static in a dynamic market, ads targeted the wrong audiences, and the website was losing guests at checkout. I built a plan: dynamic pricing tied to demand curves, cut half of the ads, rerouted budgets into high intent searches and social campaigns. I designed packages for remote workers and weekend travelers. I warned Graham it was riskier than their usual reports. He said, "If your numbers are right, we have nothing left to lose. Do it." I even structured part of my consulting fee as performance based. If I failed, I earned little. If it worked, we both benefited. The first month, graphs moved slightly. The second month, they rose sharply. Booking rates climbed, revenue followed, and even the board relaxed. Graham called one evening, voice lighter than before. "You have no idea what you've done for us, Nora. We're putting together a case study wall at our main resort with your photo and name." I laughed, preferring to stay behind the scenes, but sent a professional headshot. On their internal mock-up, my photo sat in a gold frame. Data and growth strategist, Nora Bennett. I closed the file. One more quiet win my family didn't need to know about. What I didn't realize then was that the same revived resort chain would soon host a high-profile charity gala. At that gala, my polished older brother Ethan would meet a woman named Leah Harrington, the millionaire heir my parents would fall in love with long before they accepted me. About 3 months after my first big turnaround for Harrington and Vale, Ethan called me. His voice was bright, the tone I recognized when he felt he was leveling up. "Hey, you free for coffee? I have news." We met at a sleek downtown cafe, concrete floors, overpriced cortados. He walked in wearing a tailored suit, even though it was Saturday, that easy smile on his face. I knew immediately that whatever he was about to say would make our parents very proud. "I'm engaged," he announced before I could finish my hello. "To Leah? Leah Harrington." My brain froze. "Harrington? As in Harrington and Vale?" I asked carefully. "Yeah," he said, eyes shining. "Her family owns this huge resort empire. Charity events, political fundraisers, they do it all. Dad's freaking out. In a good way." I forced a smile. I had spent months inside that empire's numbers, saving them from collapse. Yet in Ethan's world, I was always 10 steps behind whatever image he was curating. "That's great. I'm happy for you," I said. We talked about the proposal, the ring, and our parents' reaction. Of course, they were thrilled. This was the gilded doorway they had always admired. Then his expression shifted, as if saving the uncomfortable part for last. "So, there's a New Year's Eve engagement party," he said, tracing his cup's rim, "at one of Leah's family resorts. Huge event. Donors, business partners, politicians. Big deal." I nodded, expecting him to ask if I needed help with travel or attire. Instead, he said, "Look, Nora, I think it's better if you sit this one out." "Sit it out? It's your engagement party," I said. "It's a very particular crowd." Like he explained slowly. "Leah's parents and their friends are used to a certain environment. You know how you get in those situations." "How I get?" I repeated sharply. He raised his hands defensively. "You ask heavy questions, make people uncomfortable. Don't really play the game. Dad thinks it might be too stressful for you." "Too stressful for me or too embarrassing for you?" I asked. He winced. Everything was clear. "I work with hotels and resorts for a living," I wanted to say. "I know more about these people than you do." But he continued, "We only get one shot at a first impression with Leah's family. They're elite. Certain manners, certain optics. Mom and Dad are nervous. Safer if you don't come." Safer, as if I were some unpredictable storm that might ruin his night. I laughed flatly. "So, I wasn't invited to my own brother's engagement party because I didn't fit the optics." "It's not like that," he muttered. "We'll have a smaller family dinner later. Just us. You know I love you. This is just strategy." At home, my parents were in the living room, voices low and urgent. "Your brother's in-laws are elite," Dad said. "We can't risk Nora rambling about money or critiquing someone's business model. She'll humiliate us." Karen added, "She doesn't mean to, Tom, but this could be Ethan's doorway into something better. We can't let her ruin it." The words landed harder than a slap. Upstairs, my laptop still displayed the Harrington and Vale dashboard. The same brand embossed on the engagement invitations. They were terrified I would embarrass them in front of the very people whose fortunes I had helped rebuild. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and thought, fine. If they want to hide me, Let them. They have no idea how small their version of the story really is. Somewhere amid the champagne and glitter, my name was already on their walls, waiting to disrupt their strategy. New Year's Eve arrived. The week between Christmas and the 31st felt like limbo. My parents buzzed around the house discussing flights, outfits, and gifts for the Harringtons. Ethan sent a photo of the invitation. Gold foil, embossed logos. "Wish you could come," he wrote, as if I hadn't been deliberately excluded. That morning, I watched them leave in their best clothes. My mother in a new dress she couldn't really afford. My father adjusting a sale-bought tie, pretending it was designer. They waved, and I waved back. The daughter told to stay home for her own good. When the Uber drove off, the house was heavy with silence. Austin glittered with fireworks and rooftop parties, but I stayed in my apartment with takeout and my laptop open. Photos and videos arrived from my parents and Ethan. Chandeliers, champagne towers, a live band, Leia descending a staircase like a magazine cover. In one clip, I heard my father say, "That's my son up there. He's marrying into the Harrington family." I closed the media and opened the analytics dashboard for Harrington and Vale. Real-time booking numbers flickered, rows of reservations filling the same brand my brother was celebrating with. Occupancy rates climbed, revenue bars rose, bonuses and holiday parties growing, all driven by my work, unknown to anyone at the gala. Then an email from Graham Harrington popped up. Subject line, year-end update and special request. I clicked. It was more than a thank you. It detailed the transformation over the year, from panic to cautious optimism to excitement. "You didn't just tweak a few ads," he wrote. "You changed how we understand our business. We want to honor that properly." An attachment caught my eye. Concept wall of innovation.jpg. I opened it and froze. It was a mock-up of a flagship resort entrance, a long wall of framed case studies. Each frame had a photo, title, and project description. Near the center was my headshot. Cleaner and more confident than I felt, I stood beneath a plaque that read, "Data and Growth Strategist Nora Bennett." The description summarized the turnaround I had led: dynamic pricing overhaul, demand-driven campaigns, post-pandemic recovery. Guests would walk past this wall on their way into conferences and galas, clinking glasses under chandeliers, while my face occupied the center. "We're planning to unveil this at a major partners and family event next season," Graham continued. "We'd love to meet you in person, introduce you to some of the people whose jobs you helped save." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. On my phone, another photo arrived from my mother. Ethan and Leia cuddled under confetti, my parents blurred in the background, eyes shining. I imagined that somewhere near them, that wall might exist one day, my framed photo quietly contradicting every story they had told about me, being a disappointment. The irony was sharp. The place they worked so hard to hide me from could become the one where my presence was front and center. I replied to Graham with a simple, professional yes, saying I'd be honored to attend when the time came. Then I set my phone down, leaned back, and listened to the distant fireworks. They thought they had erased me from that night, convinced I couldn't reach their world. Yet on my laptop screen, my name was framed in gold, woven into the foundation of the very life they sought to control. Months after that New Year's Eve, it felt as though the brightness had quietly turned up on my life while my family acted as if I were still sitting in the dark. Harrington and Vale signed long-term contracts, pulling me into meetings about expansions, new properties, even acquisitions. Late-night calls, simulations of pricing shifts, dashboards, and strategy decks. This was the work I had always dreamed of. My bank account reflected it too. I upgraded my car, fixed my apartment, finally enjoyed a space that felt secure. I did all of it quietly. No announcements, no social media. I knew how my parents would react if I tried explaining retention bonuses or performance-based contracts. They would nod politely and ask if I had considered a real job. Meanwhile, Ethan's life looked like a highlight reel. My mom sent constant updates, photos of him and Leia at wine tastings, charity balls, luxury retreats, screenshots of articles mentioning the Harrington name with captions like, "Your brother was there last night." At Sunday dinners, the conversation revolved around wedding plans, guest lists, and how our family was soon to attend tuxedo-clad events discussing offshore accounts. Over meatloaf, Ethan said, Graham is bringing in a genius consultant for their new data strategy. If I play this right, I could work on some of those deals. I hid my reaction behind a slow sip of water. Mom looked impressed. See, that's the kind of company you want to be around, she said. Let them talk about proximity to power. I was busy building it. One afternoon in early fall, an email from Graham's assistant made me sit up straighter. They were finalizing details for the Partners and Family Gala at the Miami flagship, a celebration of the year's turnaround and Ethan and Laya's engagement. Graham and Celeste were especially excited to honor me and requested I be front and center for the Wall of Innovation unveiling. The official invitation arrived, embossed and heavy. My name appeared near the top under Strategic Partners, while my brother's name sat lower under Family of the Groom. I could already imagine my parents' reaction, bragging about being invited, emphasizing exclusivity, quietly keeping me out of the picture. But this time, the difference was clear. The Harringtons weren't inviting me as Ethan's awkward sister. They were inviting me as the person who changed the trajectory of their business. I called Graham to confirm, keeping my voice steady. "We've been telling everyone about you," he said. "I can't wait to see their faces when they realize the person behind those numbers is real." I hung up, letting the irony sink in. My family had spent a year trying to manage me out of their perfect narrative. At this gala, in that glittering resort, there would be no hiding me. My face would greet them the moment they entered, framed in gold, my name etched in metal. The Miami flagship matched every fantasy my parents had from glossy magazines: marble floors, towering palms, elaborate floral arrangements. The night of the gala, the air was warm, humming with wealth. Staff moved with precision, guiding guests toward the grand ballroom. I arrived early, not as Ethan's sister, but as one of the strategic partners. A coordinator handed me a badge. Nora Bennett, Data and Growth Strategist. Seeing it made my chest tighten. I was finally recognized for my work, not minimized as someone online. Inside the foyer, the wall of innovation stretched along one side, just like the mock-up. Gold frames, soft lighting, each case study telling a part of the company's survival story. My frame sat near the center. My photo, name, and work. Graham and Celeste greeted me warmly, introducing me to board members, department heads, and others whose livelihoods I had helped shape. For the first hour, I forgot about my family entirely, discussing numbers, future plans, and even laughing at a CFO's joke about forecasting. Then I heard my mother's voice, high and nervous, floating in from the lobby. "Oh, this place is wow! Ethan, look at that chandelier." I turned just enough to see them enter. My dad in a suit that suddenly looked cheaper under the chandeliers, my mother clutching her bag tightly, Ethan and Laya walking ahead like they belonged. My instinct was to shrink back, but the staff had been briefed. One stepped forward. "Miss Bennett, can we get you near the wall? Mr. Harrington wants you close for the announcement." Instead of hiding, I found myself standing just a few feet from my own framed photo as my family crossed the foyer. They didn't see me at first. Their eyes were on the decor, the guests, the promise of the night. Celeste tapped her champagne glass, calling for attention. Conversation softened to a hush. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "Tonight is about family and partnership, about the people who held this company up when things seemed impossible." She gestured toward the wall. "Over the last year, we built this to remind ourselves that numbers are not just charts. They're people. People who changed everything when it mattered most." She stepped closer to my frame, smiling. "One of those people is someone very dear to us now." She pointed directly at my photo. "This is Nora Bennett." For a moment, the floor seemed to tilt. My parents froze mid-sentence. Ethan's head snapped toward my name. Celeste read the plaque aloud. "Data and Growth Strategist, the mind behind the turnaround that kept these resorts alive when travel was at its worst. You have no idea how often we've said her name this year." She followed the line from the frame to where I stood, eyes widening. "Nora," she said, louder and full of delight. "Nora Bennett, you're here. You're Ethan's sister." Head swiveled. Dozens of guests turned to look at me, then at Ethan, then at my parents. The silence spoke louder than any speech. Graham stepped up beside Celeste, eyes on my family with a politeness that sharpened immediately. "You never told us your daughter was our Nora," he said to my parents. Thomas opened his mouth, then closed it, looking like he wanted to melt into the marble. My mom stammered, We we didn't realize you knew her like that. She does some kind of computer work. We didn't think it was important for tonight. Important? Graham repeated the word, and I caught the tension in his jaw. Without her, this party wouldn't exist. This building wouldn't be this full. Half the people here would be updating their resumes. Celeste laughed lightly, softening the weight of his words. We've been bragging about her for months. I can't imagine hiding someone like Nora. Ethan went pale, looking at me as if I'd betrayed him by simply existing. Nora? He whispered when he reached me. You didn't tell me you were working with them. I held his gaze. You didn't ask, I replied. Later, away from the crowd, my parents cornered me in a quiet hallway. My mother's voice shook. You made us look like fools, she whispered. We had no idea. I stopped her gently, letting her know that I mattered, that my work mattered, that the so-called embarrassing daughter had become the backbone of their in-laws' empire. My dad tried to recover his authority. You could have warned us, Nora. We would have prepared differently. I almost laughed. Prepared how? By inviting me this time? By pretending you were proud? Ethan stepped forward, eyes glassy. Look, maybe we handled things wrong, he said. But you know how Mom and Dad are. We just wanted everything to go smoothly. You do, right? Want to be part of this family? That was the moment something inside me settled. I realized I had spent years contorting myself, chasing belonging that always came with conditions. Don't say too much. Don't ask hard questions. Don't outshine the chosen star. I took a breath. I will always be your sister, I told Ethan. I will always be their daughter. But I'm done begging to sit at a table where the price of admission is pretending I'm less than I am. I'm not shrinking anymore so you can appear bigger. My mother's eyes filled with tears. Nora, we were just afraid, she said quietly. Afraid you'd embarrass us. I nodded. And tonight you found out the only thing embarrassing was how little you believed in me. That's on you, not me. Back in the ballroom, when Graham introduced me on stage as a key partner, the applause felt different from any approval I had chased growing up. It wasn't polite clapping from relatives who barely listened. It was genuine recognition from people who saw the results and valued them. People who didn't care if I wore the wrong dress or asked unusual questions, as long as I showed up with the clarity that kept their businesses thriving. Standing under the soft golden light, I understood something I wish I had learned years earlier. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't dramatic or cruel. It's refusing to hand your worth to people who only know how to discount it. It's letting your success speak in rooms where they never expected your voice, and refusing to dim yourself so insecure people can feel tall. If your family has ever made you feel like the embarrassing one, the extra one, the one who must be hidden to make them look good, hear this. Their inability to see your value doesn't erase it. You are allowed to build a life that honors who you are. You can love them and still say no when their expectations crush you. In the end, my parents had to walk past that framed photo every time they moved through the resort. My name etched into the world they worshipped. They were shrinking, avoiding eye contact, rehearsing apologies. I walked on, shoulders back, finally understanding that the real glow-up wasn't earning their acceptance. It was learning to accept myself first. If you've ever been the one they tried to hide, I hope my story reminds you. You are not alone. Share in the comments if you've had to distance yourself from people who didn't see your worth. Your story might help someone else finally stand up for theirs.